planet Dravik 4 was not a place humans visited often. It was far from Earth, deep in a region called the Crimson Sector. Most of the species there saw humans as soft, emotional, and weak. That was their first mistake. In a small village near the edge of the Dravik jungle, a child named Ava lived with her parents. Her father was a human engineer, working on a peaceful construction project for the Galactic Union. Her mother taught science at the local education dome. Ava was only 8 years old, full of energy and kindness. She loved exploring the market, talking to alien vendors, and playing with local Dravak children. She was the first human child many of them had ever seen. At first, things were fine, but not everyone liked humans on Dravik 4, a group of local enforcers hired by a rich warlord named Veltrik didn't like the way humans were gaining influence. They saw Ava's family as a symbol of weakness. A warning needed to be sent, something cruel, something that would remind the rest of the galaxy that humans didn't belong in their part of space. And so, one evening, Ava didn't return home. From the market, the next morning her parents were frantic. The local authorities were slow, uninterested. Maybe she ran away, one officer said. Human children can be unpredictable. But the humans knew better. They had raised her. Ava was brave, but not reckless. Kind, but not foolish. She wouldn't just disappear. It took them 2 days to find her. She had been thrown in a deep pit behind a warehouse. Her body was covered in bruises. Her breathing was weak, her voice barely a whisper. She was alive, but just barely. What happened? Next, changed the galaxy forever. The moment Earth received the report, it wasn't politicians who responded. It wasn't diplomats. No peaceful words. No calm discussions. The message was simple. They hurt one of ours. We are coming. The ship that arrived 3 days later was not big. It didn't carry an army. It didn't have a fleet behind it. It was a black vessel, sleek and silent, marked only with a single symbol, a silver tear. Inside the ship was one human. His name was Commander Elias Ward. He didn't speak when he arrived at the Dravik security station. He didn't ask permission to land. He didn't show a badge or an ID. He simply walked through the guards like they weren't there. The strange thing, they didn't stop him. Couldn't. His presence was wrong, heavy like the air itself. Bent around him, Ward went straight to the warehouse where Ava had been found. He stood in silence for 5 full minutes. Then, without a word, he raised his arm and pointed. One of the warehouse walls exploded outward. Even though he never touched it, Ward didn't use weapons. He was the weapon. What most of the galaxy didn't understand was this. Earth had changed. After centuries of war, loss, and survival, humanity had developed something new. Something the Galactic Union had quietly feared but never confirmed biopsychic command. Special humans who could bend reality with sheer will, they were rare. But when sent, they did not fail. Ava's attackers thought they were safe. Were protected by walls, money, and power. But when Ward walked through the front door of Veltrak's palace, every guard collapsed in fear. Some fainted, some screamed. None raised a weapon. The warlord himself, Veltrak, sat on his throne, shaking. "You can't be serious," he whispered. "You came all this way. For a child?" Ward's voice was quiet. She was ours. In less than a minute, Veltrak's palace became a crater. Only one person survived, Veltrak's assistant, a small creature named Redline, who had tried to protect Ava when no one else did. Ward looked at him once. That was enough to know the truth. "You live," Ward said simply. "Tell them what you saw." Redline ran. Across the galaxy, the message spread faster than light. They hurt one human child. Earth didn't send diplomats. They sent him. The Galactic Union tried to calm the situation, but it was too late. Videos of the destruction, the fear, the silence that followed, everyone saw them. Planets that once mocked humans suddenly closed their borders. Others sent gifts. Some simply broadcast apologies into the void. Back on Dravik 4, Ava recovered slowly. Her parents were moved to a secure habitat under Earth's protection. They never spoke publicly about what happened. They didn't have to dot Ava. despite everything. Still smiled, still played, but her eyes, those changed. They saw too much for someone so small. Elias Ward never returned to Earth. He was never seen again. But sometimes, in the deep black of space, warlords whispered stories of a silent ship, of a silver tear, and of the day the galaxy learned what happened when you hurt just one human child. Asterisk. Dravik 4 had changed. The once busy market streets were quiet. Alien traders packed their shops, security drones hovered in silence, and whispers replaced conversation. Everyone knew why. A child had been hurt, a human child. And Earth had responded not with threats, not with a council debate, but with one man, Elias Ward, and a ship marked only with a silver tear. In less than a day, he had erased an entire crime syndicate from existence. The message was clear. Touch one of ours, and we will erase you. But Earth wasn't done. A week after the incident, a fleet appeared at the edge of the Crimson Sector. 12 ships, all black, all silent. They didn't send any messages, didn't request landing access. They simply waited. The Galactic Union panicked. Admirals called emergency meetings. Politicians argued in the great halls. News streams exploded. With speculation, was Earth preparing for war? Is this the beginning of something far worse? Union Counselor Kirel, a tall insectoid from the planet Trevalin, stood before the cameras with shaking legs. "We must speak with the Terrans," he buzzed. "We must de-escalate this tension. The Union values peace." But Earth didn't respond. They didn't have to. Back on Earth, in the Core Intelligence Center, Director Alina Reyes stood watching dozens of holoscreens. She was the one who had approved Elias Ward's deployment, and now she watched the reaction with calm eyes. "Are they afraid?" her assistant asked. "They should be," Reyes said. Meanwhile, on Dravik 4, Ava slowly healed. Her bruises faded, but her mind held on to shadows. She didn't speak much. She flinched when doors opened too fast. She didn't smile the way she used to. Her father, James, held her hand every night. "You're safe now," he whispered. But he knew safety wasn't something you could promise after what happened. Not completely. Then one evening, a small ship landed near their shelter. It wasn't Earth's military. It was unmarked. The door opened. 3 figures stepped out to women, and a tall man in a plain black suit. Ava looked up slowly. The man knelt. He didn't say a word, just opened a small case. Inside was a necklace. It had a silver tear on it, just like the symbol on Ward's ship. Ava's fingers shook as she reached for it. The man finally spoke. "You're one of us now." The Union scrambled to make peace. They begged Earth for dialogue. Finally, a message was returned. One sentence. "We will attend your council, but we will speak last." The council hall on Erithus Prime was the most secure political space in the galaxy. Dozens of races gathered, their feathers, fur, metal, scales, all seated under the great crystal dome. But that day, every eye was on the entrance. The Earth delegation arrived silently. No flags, no guards. Just one diplomat, Ambassador Silas. Von Ann behind him, 3 individuals in black. No names, no introductions. Von stood in the center of the hall. "We did not come for war," he said. "We came for justice. And we got it." The Dravik senator raised his voice. "You had no right to take such actions. There are laws, procedures. You beat a child," Von said, voice sharp. "You let your own people torture her." There was silence. No law protects you from what comes after that. Another senator tried to speak, but Von cut him off. "Earth has always played by the rules. We signed your treaties. We respected your borders. But this wasn't war. This wasn't politics. This was personal. You hurt a little girl. You broke something you can't fix." He stepped closer to the center podium. "You want things to go back to normal? But they won't." A hush fell over the chamber. "From this day forward," Von continued, "any attack on a human child, anywhere in the galaxy, will be treated as an act of war. We won't send diplomats next time either." That night, The Silvertear ships vanished from the Crimson Sector. Just like that. No sound. No signal, gone, but the fear remained. New policies spread like wildfire. Planets placed signs on buildings that read, "Human Safe Zone." Criminal groups disbanded entire cells just to avoid Earth's eyes. Even speaking against humans in public, in dark corners of the galaxy, stories spread like wildfire. Stories of Elias Ward, of the Silver Tear, of the girl who survived. Some said Ward was just a myth-and-earth experiment. Others believed he wasn't human at all. Some claimed he never existed. But it didn't matter. The message was already burned into every mind. Don't touch human children. Not ever. Back on Dravik 4, Ava had changed. She didn't want toys anymore. She asked questions about the stars, about space, and about the silver. Tear one night she looked at her mother and said, "I want to help people like me." Her mother smiled gently. "You will." And so Earth created a new program, Project Tearborn, children who had survived the worst, who had seen the galaxy's dark side but hadn't broken. They would be trained, protected, not to become weapons, but to become something greater. Ava was the first. But peace, as always, was short-lived in the deep sectors of space. Far from Union Reach, a new threat stirred. A group that called themselves the Chain began gathering strength. They believed Earth had grown too bold. The one child's pain had shaken the stars too deeply. They didn't like that. They wanted to remind humanity the galaxy was still dangerous. That fear worked both ways. And so, deep in a hidden moon base, plans began. They wouldn't hurt another child. This time, they would aim higher. They would try to hurt all of Earth. Ava was not the same little girl who had once skipped through the markets of Dravik 4. The laughter in her voice was quieter now, and her eyes watched everything. She had seen the dark side of the galaxy too soon, but she had also seen something else. What happened when Earth stood behind you? She'd become a symbol. That's why Project Tearborn was created. It wasn't a school. It wasn't military training. It was something deeper. Earth wanted to protect children like Avathos, who had survived the worst the stars had to offer. But they also knew something else. These children didn't need to be saved anymore. They needed to be sharpened. The facility was located beneath the surface of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. It wasn't visible from orbit. You couldn't find it on any map. Only those with Silvertear clearance knew it existed. Ava arrived at night. The ship was silent. The man who greeted her didn't smile. "You're not a victim," he said. "You're the beginning." Inside the facility, Ava met others. Not many, only 6. Others at first, all children, all survivors. One had lost her family to pirates. Another escaped a prison colony. Each of them had a scar. Not just on the skin, but in the soul, but none of them broke. That's what made them different. Their instructor was a woman named Kira Voss. She had been Earth's top field operative before disappearing years ago. Now she stood before them, again older, sharper, quieter. "You're here because you lived," she told them, "because Earth will never let that happen again." Training was not easy. They learned how to read alien languages, how to identify threats, how to survive in toxic environments, how to move silently in zero gravity. Some days they practiced breathing techniques in freezing water. Other days they were dropped in holographic war zones where everything wanted to kill them. And through it all, Ava never gave up. She remembered the cold of the pit, the sound of her breath slowing, then Elias Ward standing above her like a shadow of vengeance. She didn't want revenge. She wanted to be like him. While Ava trained, the galaxy shifted. The Chain, a secret group formed from ex-slavers, war criminals, and rogue generals, watched Earth with quiet hatred. They saw the Silvertear fleet and Ward's silent destruction of Veltrek. They made a decision. Earth had become too powerful, and worse, too respected. They couldn't attack Earth directly. It's not yet. So they started with something smaller. Ships began to disappear near human trade routes. Colonists went missing. Signals were jammed. Distress calls arrived days late when it was already too late. At first, Earth responded carefully. Scout drones, patrol ships, quiet investigations. But the attacks continued, and then came the message. A simple transmission, leaked across dozens of channels, a voice distorted through static. One sentence, "You sent the tier. Now we bring the chain." Got the director? Reyes watched the message replay for the 5th time. She didn't blink. "They want a war," her assistant said. "No," Reyes said. "They want a statement. The same thing we gave them, but they're using fear." "What do we do?" Reyes didn't answer. Instead, she tapped into a secure file marked Tierborn, Phase 2. Ava's face appeared on the screen. She was only 9 years old. But behind her eyes was something ancient, something calm, something dangerous. "She's not ready," the assistant said. "She will be." Back in the training facility, Ava's group was undergoing their final test. It wasn't a simulation this time. The children were dropped onto an abandoned mining station floating in the asteroid belt. Oxygen was limited. Power was failing. The mission: find the distress beacon, reboot the station's life systems, and extract a hidden data core. They had 72 hours. The station creaked with age. Gravity was low. Shadows moved in the hall's mechanical defense systems, still active after decades of silence. One by one, the group completed their tasks. Ava crawled through a frozen pipe to reach a power relay. Her fingers bled from sharp metal. Her breath fogged in front of her face. But she kept going. When she finally reached the control room, she found a surprise. Another child had frozen in fear, trapped under a collapsed beam. Ava didn't hesitate. She crawled back, lifted, pulled, and when they both stumbled back to the extraction point, she didn't smile. She just said, "We don't leave our own behind." When the training team reviewed the footage, Voss stood silently. "She's ready," she said at last. And with that, Ava became the first full operative of the Tierborn initiative. Not a soldier, not a diplomat, something new, a guardian of human life, especially the young. But Earth wasn't just training kids. The Galactic Union, still shaken, formed a special task force called Shield 7 to help protect human interests. They claimed it was a diplomatic move, but everyone knew, which was out of fear. Meanwhile, Chain made their first big move. A deep space colony called Fairlight 6 went dark. No warning, no distress call, just silence. When Earth sent a drone, they found only ruins. Buildings melted, civilians gone, and a symbol scorched into the ground, a chain wrapped around a child's toy. It wasn't war, it was a declaration. The Council begged Earth to respond calmly, but they already knew the answer. Earth didn't send diplomats anymore. And now they weren't just sending soldiers either. They were sending the Tierborn. The ship was called Echo 9. It was sleek, quiet, and completely unmarked, just like all Tierborn operations. There was no crew, only an AI pilot named Iris, and one passenger, Ava, now 10 years old. Ava sat strapped into her seat as stars blurred past. She wore a black suit with no rank, no flag, no name tag, just the silver tier etched on her collar. She was silent. Inside, she was calm. Earth intelligence had found a signal coming from the outer rim sector Vornis, a lawless region known for smugglers, pirates, and abandoned warships. They believed the chain had set up a secret listening post there. Satellite footage had picked up something strange. Heat patterns from what looked like a research facility buried under the rocks of a dead moon. But it wasn't just a base. Intercepted messages suggested they were testing something. Something not made by the chain. Ava's orders were simple: infiltrate, confirm, and, if needed, dash neutralized. She had never been outside training zones before, but no one said that to her face. The adults in Earth Command had seen the footage. They knew what she was, what she could become. The dead moon was called Keras 5. No life, no light, just dust and shadows. Echo 9 dropped Ava near a broken crater, far from the main sensor arrays. The moment her boots touched the surface, her breathing slowed. She moved like a shadow barely. A whisper of movement as she crossed the rocky plain. The entrance to the facility was hidden under a rock slide, but Ava knew what to look for. Her scanner picked up a power pulse buried 20 meters deep. She planted a silent charge and backed away. With a soft FSS SHT, the wall opened. Inside, the corridor glowed faint red. The air was dry. The silence. Deep she moved forward, inside the facility. The chain had no idea she was there. Their guards were lazy, distracted. Most of them had never even fought a real battle. They were thugs who thought Earth was still a soft world of farmers and thinkers. They didn't know the truth. In a control room deep in the facility, a chain officer named Morak paced nervously. He had red skin, long arms, and eyes that blinked. Sideways. He had once been a general before being thrown out of the Union for war crimes. Now he was part of something darker. His scientists were studying an object. It found drifting near a forgotten battlefield a strange black sphere, covered in glowing patterns. It speaks, one of the scientists said. Not in sound, but in pulses. It's alive. And it mentioned Earth? Morak asked. The scientist nodded. It's using human math, human signals. Morak bared his teeth. Then it's ours now. He was wrong. It wasn't theirs. It was waiting for her. Ava slipped through air ducts, through shadowed tunnels, past guards who didn't even notice her. She reached the research lab and saw it through the glass. The sphere was small, about the size of her head. It hovered slightly, pulsing slowly. The moment she saw it, it turned. It knew her. Her eyes widened. Suddenly a voice echoed in her earpiece. It wasn't Iris. It wasn't from Earth. It was the sphere. Tearborn, Ava froze. What are you? The voice was strange. Not male, not female, just soft. I remember pain. I remember the pit. You survived. Carry the mark. Her pulse quickened. How do you know that? 'Cause I was there, long before you. And then the door opened behind her. 3 guards stormed in. One spotted her instantly. There, the human girl. Ava moved, faster than they expected. She rolled, kicked the nearest guard's knee, grabbed his dropped weapon, and fired once not lethal. Stun round. 2 down. The last one charged. She used his momentum, flipping him with a simple shift of weight. The room went silent again. The sphere pulsed. Good. But now alarms were blaring. Red lights flashed. She had no more time to ask questions. She grabbed the sphere, placed it in her secured case, and ran. In the command room, Morak howled with rage. Seal all exits. Kill the human. I want her head on my table. But Ava was already gone. The moment she reached the surface, Iris activated Echo 9's extraction protocol. The ship appeared out of the dust like a ghost, ramp already open. She jumped inside. The ship vanished into orbit before the first blast hit the moon's surface. Inside, Ava placed the case on the floor. The sphere opened, just slightly, and a projection shimmered in the air, a glowing image of Earth, of a child. Of Ava. You were not the first, the voice said. And you won't be the last. Ava stared. What do you mean? The chain is using something they do not understand. They found me. But they don't know what I was built for. Whispered, what were you built for? The voice paused. To protect children like you, to fight for them. To remember every scream, every pain, every lost voice. The projection faded. Ava sat back. This wasn't just a mission. It was a beginning. Back on Earth. Director Reyes received the report. She retrieved it. Her assistant asked. Reyes nodded and made contact. With what? Reyes stared at the screen. I think it's a forgotten weapon, not built by humans, but something that chose her. The chain, furious, realized their base had been compromised, but where something had been taken from them. That's something powerful. Morak screamed at his crew. Find her. Find Earth. This is not over. But the scientist only looked at the remaining files from the sphere. He spoke softly. She didn't steal it. Morak turned. What? The scientist swallowed. It was waiting for her. She brought the sphere back to Earth, but it wasn't just a weapon. It was something older, something that remembered, and it had chosen her. Ava stepped off Echo 9 onto the hidden landing platform deep beneath Earth's Arctic command. The wind outside howled through the icy plains above, but down here it was quiet, sterile, cold in a different way. Waiting for her were Director Alina Reyes, Instructor Kira Voss, and 3 high-ranking intelligence officers. But none of them looked at Ava. They were all staring at the floating black sphere beside her. Its dark surface shimmered like oil. Strange symbols pulsed across its shell-soft, glowing patterns that no one had ever seen before. She brought it back untouched, Kira said, proud but tense. And it talked to her. Reyes gave a small nod. Then it's time we found out what it really is. In a reinforced analysis chamber, Earth's top scientists ran scans, tests, and data sweeps. The results confused them. It's not. Metal One whispered. It's not AI. It's not alive, but it's not dead either. Then what is it? Reyes asked. Ava, who stood outside the chamber, pressed her hand to the glass, and then the sphere moved. It floated toward her, A pulse of light flashed. Suddenly, the room vanished. Ava blinked. She was standing in darkness, black sky above, a silver surface below, like space and moonlight combined. The sphere floated beside her, glowing softly, but it was no longer cold. It felt warm, familiar. This is memory space, the voice said in her mind. I am not a weapon. I am a guardian. A remnant from a time before your Earth even knew the stars. Ava swallowed. You were built to protect children? No. The voice paused. I was born from their pain. The darkness shifted. Images appeared around her. Children crying in cages. Alien slavers. War machines. Entire planets burning. While the innocent screamed into silence, and then humans. Early humans. Lost colonies. Children hidden during alien raids. Mothers who died protecting their sons. Fathers who gave their lives in the dark of space. The sphere showed it all. Every cry, the voice whispered, was heard. And something began to grow. Something built not by hands, but by pain. I was shaped by those who couldn't fight back. Eva stood still. Her heart pounded. You were watching me. When they hurt me? Yes. Why? Because you didn't. Break. Outside the memory space, Director Reyes watched Ava's body as it stood still. Eyes glowing faintly blue. She's interfacing, the scientist said. This sphere, it's giving her something. What? Reyes asked. A map. A voice. Maybe even a choice. Reyes narrowed her eyes. Or a weapon. Back inside the memory space, Ava turned to the floating sphere. What do you want from me? The sphere's voice softened. To finish what others could not. To protect those like you. To stop what is coming, the chain. They are nothing, it said darkly. But what they've awakened is worse. The images shifted again. Deep space. A prison station lost to time. Creatures in change, giant pulsing things with no eyes, no voices, forgotten things. Waiting things they found what should have stayed buried. Ava clenched her fists. Tell me what to do. Become what they fear. I will guide you. She looked into the light of the sphere and nodded. When Ava opened her eyes, the room's lights flickered. The sphere was floating calmly again, but now it responded only to her. Rhea stepped forward. What did it show you? Ava turned to. Face her. Her voice was stronger, clearer. They're not just hurting colonies. They're waking something old, something not even the chain understands. Rhea stiffened. What kind of something? I don't know yet, but it's waiting. Deep space. Secta Blackfall. The officers glanced at one another. Blackfall's uncharted, Voss said. No stations, no life, no reason to go there. There is now, Ava said, within hours. Earth Command approved a new operation, Blackfall Protocol. A scouting fleet would deploy, not military, not diplomats. Tierborn and Ava would lead it. She was the youngest person in history to receive full solo field command. Not because of her rank, but because the sphere refused to talk to anyone else. It only pulsed in her presence, only opened when she asked, and it kept whispering secrets, memories, warnings, in the quiet of her quarters. Eva sat alone. The sphere floated near her. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you remember." Meanwhile, the chain was preparing its next move. Morok stood before a huge screen, watching the stars of Sector Blackfall flicker on the edge of a new map. His scientists were unlocking strange signals, frequencies not heard in centuries. "We cracked the sphere's shell before it was stolen," one technician said. "We found coordinates and something else." "What?" Scientists looked up slowly. A name, Morok, leaned closer. Tearborn. Face twisted. "So Earth thinks it can play games in our territory?" "Good." He turned toward his command crew. "Send the fleet. Every ship. No prisoners. No survivors." Back on Earth, Ava's ship launched silently. The new vessel was called Vigil One, a hybrid craft equipped with Earth's strongest stealth tech, the sphere at its core, and an AI modeled after the sphere's own memory patterns. The stars ahead were dark. The crew behind her was small. For operatives.
Ow.
All survivors. All Tearborn. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Ava stood on the bridge as Blackfall drew near, and the sphere pulsed softly beside her. "They think this is the beginning?" it whispered. She nodded. "It's not." She looked out at the black space. "It's the warning." Deep in Sector Blackfall, Earth's youngest operative was heading into a trap. But Ava wasn't just a child anymore. She was something the chain could never predict. Vigil 1 entered Sector Blackfall with its engines humming low and shields, nearly invisible. Space around them was dead, cold, empty, and silent. No planets, no moons, just broken asteroids and the faint trace of static in every direction. Ava stood at the front of the command deck, eyes fixed on the main screen. Behind her were the other 4 Tearborn operatives older than her, tougher in appearance. But all of them followed her lead without question, because the sphere had chosen her, and now was pulsing again. "We're close," it whispered Iris. The ship's AI scanned the sector. Unusual readings ahead. Electromagnetic fog. Artificial. It's blocking standard sensors. Ava nodded. "We go in." The others exchanged glances. No one argued as they pushed forward. The fog thickened. It wasn't natural. Ava could feel it like it was watching them. The sphere floated silently beside her, but its glow had dimmed slightly. "We're being pulled," she said softly. The crew looked at her. "Pulled?" Cato, one of the senior operatives, asked. "There's no gravity field. Not physical," Ava replied. "Something deeper." Then they saw it. A shape in the fog. A massive structure, half buried in an asteroid, lights flickering like dying stars. It wasn't built by humans. It wasn't even built by the chain. It was older, far older. The AI's voice trembled slightly in. Artificial thing showing fear for the first time. "I'm detecting something inside the structure. Something alive." The sphere spoke again. This is where it began. Ava stepped forward. "Land us near the outer hall. We're going in." Cato shook his head. "This might be a trap." "It is," Ava said. "But it's our trap now." The Tearborn team landed silently and entered the ancient structure. Through a cracked hull door, their suits adjusted automatically to the air thin, but breathable. Inside, the walls were black stone mixed with strange metal. Symbols etched deep into the floor glowed faintly under Ava's feet. "Is this a prison?" Juna, another operative, asked. "No," Ava whispered. "It's a tomb." The sphere floated ahead, guiding them through winding halls, past massive empty chambers, filled with strange machines. All of it forgotten until they reached the core. In the center of the room was a suspended chamber glass and metal fused together, glowing with an eerie red light. Inside it was something a humanoid figure, tall, thin, eyes closed, wrapped around its body. Skin was black like space, but shimmered with starlight. "Is it alive?" Cato asked. The sphere answered, "It is becoming." Suddenly, alarms screamed. All lights turned red. The structure began to shake. Iris's voice came through there. "Comes. Enemy ships detected 12 chain vessels approaching. They found you." Ava didn't panic. "Prepare defenses. Send. Full upload of this chamber to Earth." Cato stepped forward.
"What about you?" I stay.
On board the lead chain warship, Morak stood tall. Fangs bared as the structure came into view. "Prepare to fire," he ordered. "Destroy the tomb. Bury the girl." But before they could act, Vigil 1 fired first. A burst of directed plasma hit the nearest chain vessel, frying its systems. Ava's team had rigged the ship to auto-defend with every last bit of energy back inside the tomb. Ava placed her hand on the chamber glass, and the sphere floated beside her. "She is ready," it said. The figure inside the chamber opened its eyes. They glowed silver. Ava was flooded with visions, not hers. The beings she saw an ancient race, not human, not aliens. Something in between. A people who could feel the pain of others, who built guardians to protect the weak. But their creations were too powerful, too dangerous. So the galaxy turned on them. One by one they were hunted down. This one, the last, had been locked away. Forgotten, but it had never truly slept. It had waited for someone like Ava, someone who felt pain, and still stood. Outside, Earth's auto-defense system gave out. Vigil 1 exploded in a silent flash, taking 2 chain ships with it. But now the rest of the fleet was descending. Morak smiled. "She's cornered." He didn't know what had just awakened. Ava turned to her team. "Get to the escape pods. Now." "What about you?" Juna asked. "I need to finish this." "Ava, go." The team hesitated, then ran. They knew her tone, knew that something else had taken over. The sphere pulsed faster. "You are the first child in thousands of years to survive what you survived and still care. That makes you more than human." The being stepped out of the chamber. Tall, silent, a presence like gravity, and then it knelt before Ava. "Command me." Ava stared at it. She remembered the pit, the cold, the pain. And now she was standing above something the galaxy feared. She didn't smile, she just nodded. The chain fleet opened fire. Missiles, plasma, kinetic rounds. The ancient tomb shook under. Impact, but it didn't fall. Ava walked outside, onto the platform, with the Guardian behind her. She raised her hand, and the stars. Blinked. The Guardian moved so fast, it was like light turned solid. It ripped through ships, tore through metal like paper. The chain didn't have a chance. Morak screamed. "What is that?" Ava answered. "Over open comes." "You wanted a message? Here it is." The last thing Morak saw was a silver-eyed child standing in space. As his ship was crushed into nothing, the battle ended in under 3 minutes. Only Ava stood at the edge of the wreckage, surrounded by silence. Her team returned in escape shuttles. Earth Command arrived minutes later. But by then there was nothing. Left to fight, only a message broadcast on all channels. She is not alone. The Union, the Chain, the pirates, everyone heard it. Everyone. Understood. Earth didn't just send a human child into space. They sent the galaxy a warning. And now the galaxy had a choice. Stop hurting the innocent, or face what was coming next. The girl they tried to break became something else.
Ow.
The galaxy must answer for what it allowed. And Earth. Earth is done being polite. The wreckage of the chain fleet drifted across the silent black of Sector Blackfall. No distress signals. No survivors. Just ashes and sparks where proud warships once floated. Earth's diplomatic cruiser Unity arrived minutes after the end. Its crew expected a battlefield. They found a graveyard at the center of it, standing atop a shattered chain. Dreadnought was a young girl, alive.com. With the ancient guardian at her side, Ava returned to Earth, not in silence. But in storm, every screen across human space showed or faced the child they hurt, the child who survived, the child who answered back. News networks tried to spin it. Analysts argued over strategy, politics, and legality, but the people, they saw her and understood only one thing. Never again, no. More forgiveness. No more waiting. No more sending diplomats to monsters. In the Galactic Union Hall, chaos had broken loose. The chain ambassador was missing, last seen running from his ship. Dozens of alien governments demanded answers. The Terran delegate stood before them all. Ambassador Kepler, old.com. Always polite, not. Today he placed a small device on the table. It played a recording. A child's scream. Chains clanking. Alien laughter. The room went silent. Kepler didn't raise his voice. He just said one thing. You let this happen. Now you'll deal with what you created. Then he left. Ava didn't return to her home city. She didn't go back to any known base. Instead, she walked the old ruins of Earth's first space war. Deep in the mountains, silent places full of old scars. Her guardian followed quietly, saying nothing. She could feel it. Taxi was watching. The chain wasn't just scared. It was fracturing all across their empire. Planets rebelled. Soldiers surrendered. Their own leaders turned on each other, afraid of becoming the next target. One human child had shaken an empire. In orbit, Earth's high command met. They reviewed everything: Ava's DNA changes, her link with the ancient guardian, the messages from the sphere. She's not just a survivor, one general said. She's something new. She's not a weapon, another replied. She's a warning. Should we hide her? No, came the reply from the president herself. We show the galaxy exactly what happens when they hurt one of ours. Word spread. Ava had returned, but she was not alone. The ancient guardian now protected her. But there were whispers of more, that Ava had awakened others. That deep in forgotten corners of the galaxy, more guardians were stirring. Not all as kind, not all as merciful. The chain had opened a door they couldn't close. In a hidden chain base deep underground, one of the last generals made a final call. We surrender. We're done. But before the transmission could finish, the roof exploded inward. Ava walked through the smoke. Behind her, dozens of children rescued from cages, some alien, some human. She didn't say a word. She just walked past the general, the guardian behind. Her stared down at him. The general broke, dropped his weapon, and cried, back on Earth. Ava stood before a memorial. Names were being added. Names of the children who hadn't survived the camps, not just humans, others too. Innocents forgotten by their own people. Ava reached out and placed a hand on the stone. I remember, she whispered. Behind her, millions watched through cameras. No speech, no. Politics, just silence. The kind of silence that demands change. The Union voted. New laws passed. War crime courts formed. Even planets once loyal to the chain begged Earth for forgiveness. But it wasn't Earth they feared anymore. It was the idea of her, of someone small, beaten, chained, rising, and refusing to kneel. Ava never returned to school, never joined the military. She became something different. A ghost, a symbol. She moved between stars, finding broken places and fixing them. Finding children who were hurting and setting them free. And behind her, always the guardian walked, silent, watching. Waiting on one outer colony, a slaver tried to resist, laughed. In Ava's face, you're just a kid, he said. Ava didn't even speak, the guardian did. That child destroyed your empire. The slaver didn't laugh again. Back in the ruins of Blackfall, their guardians began to stir. The sphere had been right. Ava was not alone. She had become a signal, a beginning one day. She would stop, rest. But not today. Not while others still cried in chains. Not while evil still whispered in dark corners. Because once, they hurt one human child. And Earth didn't send diplomats. They sent her.